In a gaming lore packed with over-the-top action, demonic shadows, and enough stylish combos to make your head spin, only a few weapons are as iconic as Rebellion, Dante's signature greatsword in the Devil May Cry series. This is more than just a blade. Rebellion not only represents Dante's lineage, strength, and defiance, it pretty much embodies his role as the son of Sparda. First introduced in Devil May Cry 2, Rebellion was given a deeper significance in Devil May Cry 3, and since then, it has evolved from a simple sword into a key element of Dante's power, playing a crucial role in both his gameplay and story. Unlike Vergil's precise and disciplined Yamato, Rebellion suits Dante's aggressive, free-flowing combat style. It channels his demonic heritage, allowing him to unleash devastating combos, transformations, and powerful devil trigger abilities. Over the series, its significance only deepens before ultimately culminating in Devil May Cry 5, where its destruction reshapes Dante's connection to his power. But what makes Rebellion so special? How does it stack up against other legendary weapons in the franchise? And what does its evolution reveal about Dante's journey in the Devil May Cry series? Well, without wasting another moment, let's dissect Rebellion's design and legacy in the gaming series, and figure out what makes this great sword the very embodiment of Dante's powers. What is Rebellion? How did Dante acquire his signature greatsword? The enthusiasts of the Devil May Cry gaming lore know just how long-drawn the history and background of the Rebellion sword is in the series. Even though the true forging process of this sword has never been explicitly detailed or explored in the official lore, we know that Rebellion was created by a powerful demon knight, known as Sparda, who also created the other major weapons seen within the games, including the powerful swords like Yamato and Sparda itself. Now, Dante's trademark magic sword was first introduced in Devil May Cry 2, and since then, it has appeared throughout the series. Though it has the form of a standard longsword, it's actually a magical blade originally created alongside the Sparda and Yamato, when the Dark Knight Sparda split his power into 3 pieces. The Great Sword Rebellion was actually named by Sparda to embody retaliation, and in order to complement the Yamato, the sword which can separate man from devil, as compared to the Rebellion, which commands the ability to unite the two forces. Originally a worker of the underworld, Sparda rose against his fellow demons to protect people, and ultimately taught Dante about this in the form of Rebellion. Now, Rebellion was eventually given to Dante as a keepsake from his father, so that he could protect himself from the demonic hordes that he battles. Dante first received Rebellion while he was being tortured in the Hellfire prison. While writhing in agony, he heard his father's voice calling out to him and giving him the sword as a means to fight back against his tormentors. However, some early concept art suggests that Dante may have obtained the Rebellion at a younger age, thus hinting at an alternate backstory for the weapon. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, this weapon isn't just a tool for Dante, it's also a reminder of the duty he received to protect the world of humans. People usually think Dante to be someone who's carefree and sure of himself, as he often makes light of important situations with a quick joke, but even though he acts carelessly, Dante has a strong sense of right and wrong, and is determined to eliminate devils. Although his character grows and changes throughout the series, he always stays committed to saving people. As Rebellion is directly connected to Dante's hybrid heritage, it also has the ability to shift into different weapons on the fly, allowing Dante to use multiple weapons. Not just that, the sword's ability also allowed Rebellion to serve as a physical manifestation of his devil trigger power. Basically, due to his half-demon physiology, Dante can release his demonic power through his devil trigger, which allows him to shift into his demonic form, thus amplifying all his abilities. Although you should know that Dante's appearance in this form varies throughout the games as the lore progresses, but the blade's power originally lay dormant until it came into contact with Dante's blood. That's when it was finally awakened, culminating in Dante using its intrinsic function to fully unite his human and demon halves, in order to reforge the blade into the Devil Sword Dante, but that doesn't happen until Devil May Cry 5, so we'll again circle back to this later. What does Rebellion look like? Rebellion is a massive silver-colored double-edged longsword with a heavy, battle-worn look. And please don't go by the concept art, which mostly ends up giving the sword a bluish tint. Anyway, apart from its long, double-bladed edge, it has a forward-facing edge, curving outward to form a unique guard. Near the tip, both sides of the blade have distinctive notches to further enhance its brutal aesthetic. The handguard itself is designed to resemble a swirling vortex that reverses at its center, adding to its striking, almost mystical appearance. While the grip of this great sword is unadorned, the guard takes the form of a skeletal structure, featuring a skull on each side that connects to the rib cage, from which the blade itself emerges. One skull is human, while the other is that of a horned demon, emphasizing the weapon's supernatural nature and also a nod to Dante's hybrid heritage. Initially, the crossguard stays folded in against the ribs, but when Rebellion is activated by Dante's blood, it extends outward, and the skull transforms into a menacing, screaming visage, signaling its true power. Coming to the pommel, it features a round piece that bears a rather strange resemblance to a face, and when it's swung, the sword leaves behind a distinctive white streak to mark its path through the air. Moreover, in its dormant state, the sword's pommel is simple and single-spiked, but when awakened, it splits open into several sharp points. Rebellion didn't even receive a slight redesign until Devil May Cry 5, where the grip was changed to have an interwoven pattern, and the quillions were made to be smaller with a slight curve to them. In this redesign, the skull and quillions both have swirling patterns on them, and the skull on the demon side now has horns coming out of its eye sockets. The ribcage is now just a raised addition to the blade rather than surrounding it, with the blade going all the way back to the guard. The blade also has swirling patterns just like the pattern-welded Damascus steel, with the pattern being darker and more noticeable on the demon side, with a slight rainbow-colored sheen to it. How powerful is Dante's sword? Rebellion is not just Dante's signature, but the physical manifestation of his Devil Trigger powers. This remarkably powerful magical sword is sharp enough to pierce the surface of the Savior's body, while it's powered by the Sparda. For those who don't know, the Savior, or El Salvador, is an artificial demon, powered by the power of the Sparda sword. It's also one of the most durable objects in the series, capable of withstanding hits from the space-cutting blade Yamato, a katana that says its legend can cut even the darkness, as well as a direct punch from the Savior, demonstrating incredible resistance and even a possible display of indestructibility. These characteristics suggest that it is a sword that stands out physically in the form of an unbreakable weapon, which requires great physical strength to be wielded, implying that this sword was always intended for Dante. But even despite its durability, the blade was unable to survive against a solid blow from Urizen, and was simply shattered, with only the hilt and guard remaining intact. While we know that Rebellion is awakened by Dante's blood, Dante's own latent power must be active for the blood to have an effect. In the manga, Dante's latent demonic powers became temporarily active, and his blood changed Rebellion. But when Dante's powers became dormant again, Rebellion became dormant as well. It was not until Devil May Cry 5 that Dante deduced Rebellion's ability to complement Yamato. Like I've previously mentioned, while Yamato could separate a person's mortal and demonic sides, the Rebellion could instead unify them. Dante exploited this ability by willingly impaling himself on the sword, fusing the Rebellion and Sparda into the Devil Sword Dante, and simultaneously unlocking his Sin Devil Trigger. This implies that it is not only an almost indestructible sword, but also has a different power to something physical. But what if I told you that the Rebellion ability has to do with something a little more like how copper works with electricity? That is, the true ability of Rebellion is to absorb and be a conductor of energy. What I'm trying to say is, it basically absorbs and channels demonic power rather than simply acting as a conventional weapon. This explains why Rebellion could withstand clashes with Yamato, a sword that can cut even the intangible, but then shattered against Urizen's brute force punch. In Devil May Cry 5, Nico suggests that Yamato's true form is energy, with the katana itself being a physical manifestation of its power. This means that during his battles with Vergil, Rebellion was likely absorbing Yamato's energy, which not only prevented it from breaking, but also helped Dante bridge the gap in their power levels. Similarly, every time Dante has been stabbed with Rebellion, it has only made him stronger, because those attacking him were demons, and the sword was likely absorbing their energy rather than harming him. This could also explain how Rebellion was able to absorb and merge with the Sparda sword, ultimately creating the Devil Sword Dante. When looking at Rebellion's power through this lens, many story elements make more sense, such as why Dante was able to defeat Vergil in Devil May Cry 3 despite their power imbalance, why the sword broke when it did, and why Dante's strength continues to grow throughout the series. How was Rebellion reforged into Devil Sword Dante? As I've mentioned a couple times already, Dante's blade's real power originally lay dormant until it came in contact with his blood after he impaled himself with his broken demonic sword Rebellion, and merged himself with it along with his father's legendary blade, Sparda. At that point, Rebellion's true potential was finally unlocked, thus allowing Dante to use its intrinsic function to fully unite his human and demon halves, in order to reforge the blade into the Devil Sword Dante. When it comes to its appearance, the Devil Sword Dante is relatively simple compared to its counterparts. It has a large two-handed sword, made mostly of a dark substance that resembles solidified lava, with claws running up its length, talons for a handguard, and a red jewel on its pommel. When Dante uses his Sin Devil Trigger as well as certain other attacks, the blade splits open in the middle, increasing in length, while generating a second blade of fiery red energy. How cool is that? Anyway, as it turns out, in Devil May Cry 5, when Dante stumbled upon his old childhood home, he pondered about why his father Sparda had given him the rebellion. When Griffin asked him what he was muttering about, he remarked upon all the times he had been impaled repeatedly over the years by his own sword. Following this, he began reflecting on the Yamato's ability to sever one's own being, and so Dante started to wonder what the rebellion could do. Next, we know he promptly shoved its blade through his gut, and doing so caused his body to not only absorb the rebellion into his being, but his father's sword on his back as well, thus causing a massive burst of energy and transforming his devil trigger into its most powerful form. Without a word, Dante flew into the air and headed back to the cliff-off, quickly barging back into Urizen's lair and saving Nero at the last minute from the Demon King's chokehold. After manifesting a new sword from his being bearing his name, Dante fought Urizen, pushing him back. So folks, that's how Rebellion got a cool power upgrade into Devil Sword Dante. How powerful is the Rebellion Sword's gameplay in Devil May Cry? So in terms of gameplay, it's actually Devil May Cry 2 that introduces Rebellion as the signature sword in Dante's arsenal, and in terms of moveset, it functions exactly like the two other swords that were introduced back then, Vendetta and Merciless. Just like with these two swords, Dante's Devil Trigger allows him to amplify Rebellion's power and use techniques like Round Trip and Million Stab. But in Devil May Cry 3, Rebellion becomes a unique weapon with its very own combos. It now has a full Devil May Cry style stinger rather than the old stationary stinger of Devil May Cry 2. And it is also one of the weapons that Air Hike can be purchased for. Dante can now use Rebellion to perform a new charge move called the Drive, which throws out a powerful projectile and deals heavy damage to knock enemies down. This new Swordmaster style grants Dante additional moves for Rebellion, starting with Aerial Rave, which allows him to perform a 4-hit aerial juggle combo, rather than his usual Helmbreaker downward strike, and Prop Shredder, which has Dante perform 2 buzzsaw-like spins of his sword, the first of which can simply launch enemies into the air. And as you level up Swordmaster, Dante gains Sword Pierce, which is a move similar to Round Trip, where Dante throws his sword straight into an enemy, having it deal damage over time as he can perform unarmed attacks or switch weapons. Unlike Round Trip, the sword can be manually recalled at any time. Finally, Dance Macabre has Dante perform a long combo which can end in a Million Stab or Crazy Combo into a Pole Dance move, where Dante spins around his sword and ends with a Mighty Slash. How cool is that? But while having the Devil Trigger active, Dante performs faster moves and cannot be interrupted unless it's a larger enemy. He can also use his folded coat wings to glide, and when he utilizes Air Hike near a wall to leap off of it, he can descend much faster. Now, when it comes to Devil May Cry 4, Rebellion has a much wider selection of combos. In this game, Million Stab is no longer a crazy combo, instead being the standard ending of Combo B, as with the swords in the first game, and a hold action from Stinger. Dante can now execute a quicker version of Drive and upgrade it to the 3-hit Overdrive. He also has the ability to increase the range and power of Rebellion's attacks with his Devil Trigger, which also drastically changes how some moves like Stinger behave. While Round Trip returns in place of Sword Pierce, it can be used more quickly and can also be manually recalled at any time with Sword Pierce. Dance Macabre also starts off in the same way, but it doesn't have a crazy combo ending. Instead, after the Million Stab, Dante automatically finishes by performing an upward swing, and then striking the enemy with his sword like he's swinging a baseball bat. Finally, in Devil May Cry 5, Rebellion is only used in Dante's first mission, though it's identical in moveset to Sparda, and any skills that are purchased for it simply carry over. After the game has been completed once, the player can easily select whether to use Rebellion, Sparda, or Devil Sword Dante as their sword. But once this selection is made, it cannot be changed without visiting a store. On completing Son of Sparda difficulty, Dante will unlock a skill called Irregular Full Custom, which allows him to equip all 3 swords at once. Naturally, like Sparda, Rebellion is inferior in most regards to Devil Sword Dante, lacking its special sword formation moves and its ability to use Drive or Overdrive. However, Dante can still access the Sin Devil Trigger while using Rebellion, so that's definitely something. Why is Dante's Devil Sword so superior to Rebellion in terms of gameplay? If you played the games, I'm pretty sure you know that the Devil Sword Dante is unlocked at the end of Mission 12 in Devil May Cry 5, when Dante is confronting Urizen along with his Sin Devil Trigger. In the first playthrough of the story, it replaces Sparda, just as the latter replaced Rebellion, and renders both swords inaccessible until the game is cleared. The Devil Sword is significantly different compared to Dante's other 2 swords, as it switches most of Rebellion and Sparda's Swordmaster moves to be part of its basic moveset. Aerial Rave is now the basic air move with Helmbreaker triggered by pressing back, and melee like Nero's Split, while Prop and Shredder have been made the final 2 hits of the DSD Combo C. Dante also regains access to Drive as a back-to-forward melee directional attack, and Overdrive as its follow-up. Drive can also be charged by holding the melee button up to 2 levels, with Overdrive keeping on the same level. Although it's not mentioned in the game, Quick Drive can also be executed by inputting the command for Drive right after the first basic combo melee hit, but this one cannot be changed or followed by Overdrive. However, the real showstopper for Devil Sword Dante is Swords Formation. This is a charge move that summons glowing red swords similar to Vergil's summoned swords, which enhance Dante's capabilities. Invoking them costs 2 bars of the DT gauge, and they will remain even if the player switches to a different melee weapon. Although if Dante activates Devil Trigger, they're automatically invoked for no cost, regardless of the selected melee weapon. But in Swordmaster mode, the swords follow a formation called Chaser, where the swords will copy Dante's melee moves, dealing extra damage and sometimes having unique effects, such as Balrog's Kick Launcher Updraft, now kicking the enemy into a persistent spinning sword wheel that forms in midair. Devil Sword Dante's own Swordmaster moves are completely different from the other swords, using the summoned swords to perform certain moves analogous to a basic ground combo. Stinger, High Time, and Round Trip. All of these are performed independently by Dante himself, which allows him to continue performing moves of his own. They do not require Swords Formation to be summoned in order to use them. However, Swords Formation will not interact with Dante's normal melee attacks while one of these attacks is being performed. Only one of the attacks can be active at any given time, so Round Trips will preclude the use of the other moves until it concludes. This variant of Round Trip also has the added advantage of how Dante does not throw his actual sword, and so he can still use it while the attack is dealing damage. Now, the only Swordmaster move from the other 2 swords that Devil Sword Dante retains is Dance Macabre. Moreover, this works in the same way as before, dishing out a powerful canned combo focused on one enemy, which hugely increases the style meter, but cannot actually kill an enemy until the final hit. However, it is now back to forward command rather than just forward, as that's now used for the Swordmaster version of Stinger. Like all back-forward commands, there's also a forward command move. The back-forward move needs to be performed fairly quickly to avoid triggering Stingers instead. Swords Formation and Devil Trigger also modify the other styles significantly. If either is active when using Gunslinger, the swords will be in a formation called Interceptor. In this formation, they array themselves behind Dante just like how we see Vergil's swords, or some of Lucifer's moves. In this mode, the swords will automatically target and fire themselves at nearby enemies, dealing fairly minor damage, but with quite the heavy knockdown effect. They will also target some incoming projectiles, such as summoned swords or a nobody's eyeball bombs. But in Trickster mode, the swords form a formation called Reactor, where the summoned swords do not attack. Instead, they hover near Dante's feet. Plus, Trickster is massively enhanced by this, doubling Dante's evasive abilities, as he can now perform a double ground dash with no delay between dashes, and also do Skystar, Air Trick, or even Air Hike 2 to 3 times without touching the ground. Not just that, these extra evasive moves have an associated animation, where the summoned swords form platforms under Dante's feet. Lastly, in Royal Guard, the swords enter a formation called Escort, which has the swords follow Dante in a vertical bar formation. When Dante guards, they array diagonally, forming a structure resembling a shield. In this formation, the swords increase the amount added to the royal gauge while blocking attacks, and automatically reduces the damage of all attacks that successfully hit Dante. Plus, if Dante is struck by an attack minor enough, Escort will even prevent the current stylish rank from decreasing, although he will still flinch a little. However, more powerful attacks will override this and penalize the stylish rank like normal. Here, the final cherry on top is that acquiring Devil Sword Dante also grants you access to the Sin Devil Trigger mode, and it's the only weapon used for Dante's melee strikes in that mode. He doesn't actually have to have it equipped post-game, as he can simply enter Sin Devil Trigger mode with either Rebellion or Sparda as his selected sword, or even without any weapons equipped. It is without a doubt that Dante's Devil Sword can eat Rebellion for breakfast. Still, the latter will always be considered as Dante's signature weapon. Moreover, the Rebellion sword impacts more than just the Devil May Cry series. Anime and manga fans have also seen it in other works, and since then, it has become a popular collectible among cosplayers. Because of the sword's unique shape and the series' success, it has become an iconic piece of video game art. Fans still talk about and respect its history, design, and abilities, which help the series stay popular. In Devil May Cry, the Rebellion sword is more than a mere weapon. It symbolizes everything that Dante stands for, from his fight against his demon roots to his desire to protect people. But what are your thoughts about the Rebellion sword? I'm sad that we didn't get to see it in the Netflix series. With that being said, did you guys like Adi Shankar's take on the Devil May Cry lore? Let us know about your thoughts and opinions in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks everyone!